Welcome, everyone, to another exciting Thursday night. You read that right. This is one man in a room, one man on a plane. The two men in a room show that almost wasn't. So, tonight, I'm here, the angriest man in Orlando, Anthony, your host for the night. Our co host, our normal co host, is on a plane right now between Las Vegas and Orlando. He actually had to get called back. The scheduling didn't quite work right. And so he's on a plane right now. We'll see if he lands in time for the show. He might be able to jump on. I did send him an invite. So we'll see if he comes through. We have a special guest co host tonight. She's been on here before. So everyone say hello to Mara J.
Hi, everyone.
All right, we're very excited to have you back. And since you've already been on here, do you know the rules?
Yes, I know the rules.
Excellent. All right, so we got a couple topics
I
for
wanna
tonight
say
we're going to go through. Go ahead.
it's
What was that?
a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure having you. It's wonderful you could jump on with such short notice. So we want to thank everyone who is tuning in right now. We've already got a comment here from Nightmare. Hi, hello. Thank you for coming to our wonderful show tonight. We just want to say thank you to everyone watching this live or on replay. Make sure you hit the like buttons and make sure you subscribe or follow. We're both on YouTube and Rumble at this time. So make sure you hit the subscribe and follow to get those notifications when our shows come on. So before we get into the show tonight, I want to give a special shout out to somebody who helped me out this weekend. We had a leak on the car, my Corvette. So as I've stated in the past, it's not the greatest car in the world, but it's really fun to have. So I was able to get in and get out pretty quickly thanks to this gentleman who helped me out. So I want to give a quick shout out to Jeremy at Elevated Automotive.
Yay!
The address is 6651 Narcoossee Road in Orlando, Florida, just north of the airport. They do great work. No job too big or too small. And they do a lot of high performance stuff. So if you got a Camaro, if you got a Mustang, if you got a Challenger, if you've got a Supra, if you got anything that's high performance, high speed, he does wonderful things with what he does there. Exhausts, tunes, body kits. He'll add on what you need and add the horsepower you want. So check him out on Facebook, Elevated Automotive, 6651 Narcoossee Road, Orlando, Florida. Google him. You'll get his address, number, and check him out. He's really good at what he does, and he keeps my car going all the time. So I want to give a special shout out to him for helping me out with that. Okay, so we're going to get into tonight's topics. And the first one is something that we talk about from time to time. And since it's back in the news, we're going to get into it. The Disney board meeting just happened yesterday. It was very exciting, very fun, and very short. It was only about an hour long. And thanks to the Laughing Place, they actually got us the minutes on that. So I'm going to actually be able to pull up the minutes on here. There we go. Okay. So are you a fan of Disney, Mara Jade? Is that?
Well, I used to be a big fan of Disney, but I feel Disney has probably outlived its usefulness. And, if it goes down, that's just, capitalism. That's the market. So at this point, I'm not into Disney a lot.
Not into Disney. Okay. I'm trying to get down to the beginning because the beginning of this conference call was actually pretty good. I think so. So it started with just welcome. Today's meeting is expected to begin at this time. Get ready. Fun, fun, fun. The executive vice president and chief legal and compliance officer joined us, Horatio Gutierrez. Okay. Fun stuff when we're live. Okay, so Nelson Peltz was announced. He had 3 minutes to speak. He said basically, regardless of the results of today's vote, they'll be watching Disney's performance. The Blackwell's group did not address the shareholder meeting. And those were the two groups that were kind of the outsiders trying to get onto the Disney board. Then they went through approvals for different proposals. One was basically to cap golden parachutes on any executives that were going to be leaving. The board recommended to vote against it because, hey, we want to give them the money. The next proposal was the Educational Foundation of America, which was basically wanting to basically check political contributions that were going to positions or people that they disagreed with. Disney board recommended a vote against it. The next proposal was for Disney providing detransitioning care. There was a great guest who came on. Her name was Chloe, and she actually talked about her own situation where she transitioned and then tried to transition back, and she wants Disney to, if they're going to be providing for transitioning, which they do, she also wants them to provide to detransition if anyone chooses to do that in the future. They were against that proposal as well. Shareholders' next proposal was supporting controversial issues by supporting certain LGBT charities. They were against that policy. And then they basically gave a final call on the vote and then announced voting is now closed. So the vote came in, and all the original Disney board members were renewed in. None of the Trian or Blackwell nominees made it, so there was nobody added, nobody deleted from the board. So the status quo is still on at Disney. And then after that, they basically did a trailer on the Disney parks, what's coming for that, Disney movies, what's coming for that, and then took some questions that were, pre-sorted and put on basically to kind of prop up Iger a little bit more. So the board's staying the same. Nothing out of the trailers was exciting or new. We all basically knew what's coming. Moana 2, Inside Out 2. They're doing a lot of stuff at parks overseas. They're not really doing much for parks here in America. So do you think in the next year, Disney will succeed or Disney will fail? Mary Jane.
Well, in my opinion, Disney's going to be failing. They're going to raise prices for the parks. The movies they're putting out, nobody really wants to see. We saw them on Disney Plus, a lot of them, and they need to change if they want to survive at all.
Right. The very fact that nothing new or exciting was announced. Basically, what's going on is everything kind of is staying on the same track that Disney has been rolling with, and nothing really new was announced. We all kind of heard the same news from several months ago. Um, it's kind of what you'd expect from this board meeting. It's not exactly the place for them to announce big stuff, but with their stock now going down about $5 a share, it basically is starting to die off and kill. Some of the push was, I think, that Pelt was going to come onto the board, and that's what the stock kind of rebounded. So we're not sure if the stock can hold. What can they do going forward? They can announce something big at D23 Expo in August. If they announce something big, it'll be great. It'll move on. So we have Mary Jade has stepped out for just a minute to fix those difficulties, and we'll get back to that. And I'll go on with what I was saying. What we're seeing right now is, I think Disney is going to stay the course with what they're doing. There's nothing new or exciting coming out this year, so we're hoping that things change magically, I guess. This is the House of Mouse that has a lot of magic. Nelson Peltz was on CNBC, and he stated that he's going to pull back his proxy fight, basically, I think, due to SEC regulations and stuff. And he's going to basically just watch and see how it goes. If things get better, he'll kind of step back and stay as a shareholder. If things get worse, he may try to come in and do anyway. So like I was saying, Nelson Peltz is going to kind of stand back a little, and I'm going to stand with him. I'm going to take a step back, see what goes on. But I'm ready to fire the cannons. I live pretty close to Disney, so I'm ready to fire the cannons and fight again, and we'll see if Peltz wants to go at it again with what he's doing. So we're going to sit back. We're going to see what happens. If the stock price goes back down to 70 or so, it's pretty much a sinking ship at that point. I think a lot of people will start pulling out, possibly even large financial institutions will start pulling out and going from there. So we'll have to see where we go from there. So we're kind of on hold right now. Definitely go check out the first 15 to 20 minutes of the meeting. There were some interesting people who spoke, proponents who took shots at Disney, and it was kind of fun to listen to. All right. What do I think is going to happen? I think if they stay on the slate that they're going on, there's not a lot of movies that are going to be able to pull themselves back up out of it. So it's going to rely mostly on the parks, which, as Mary Jade said earlier, the parks are going up in price and not up on product. Epic Universe is opening in 2025, and somebody asked Bob Iger about that. What did you plan as a sort of response to Epic Universe? And he stated, well, we've been planning for about the last several years or so, and a lot of the stuff that we were doing, like Avatar Land and the new additions at Epcot and all the little stuff that they were doing, that was their response to Epic Universe. And so far, a lot of those responses have not been accepted really into the stuff, especially at Epcot. If you've been in the last couple of years, it was either looking like a complete construction zone, or the stuff that they just put out was kind of working intermittently, and it just wasn't a great thing to be seeing there, especially when this park is the park of the future. There was supposed to be so many exciting new things there, and now it's just a lot of characters and concessions and shopping places. It's really like the countries aren't even exciting anymore, other than for people to just go in and drink around the world. And there's not a lot of enthusiasm for anything there right now. And an interesting thing was said on a show that I watched. You could tell that the parks aren't full, and the reason you could tell the parks aren't full is because if you look at the water parks, they have two major water parks. They have Typhoon Lagoon and they have Blizzard Beach. And for the last year or so, only one park has been open at a time. So the interesting thing is, prior to that, for years and years and years, you'd have two parks open during the summer, and then one park would close for like 3 months, like November, December, January, or January, February, March, so that they could do maintenance and refurbishments and all that. And right now, they're just doing 6 month cycles of on and off for each park. So you'll have during the winter months, Blizzard Beach is open. During the summer months, Typhoon Lagoon is open. So if you had enough people that you could go through and have both parks open, that would be the telling tale that the parks are full and everybody's there, because there'd be such capacity at the parks that people would want to go do the water parks more. So I thought it was an interesting way to look at it. And it is very telling that if you can't have two water parks open at the same time, you're obviously not at a full capacity. So definitely something to watch to see if that changes at all, to see if the parks are bringing in the capacities that they should be bringing in, because they're really the moneymaker that's keeping the studio alive right now. The studio has had pretty much 90% of the movies last year flops. Indiana Jones lost over 200 million alone. So you can see that nothing else is really making money. The movies, the streaming's not making any money. The parks are kind of holding it together right now. And here's another interesting concept. As you hear people and they say, well, just let it go down, just let it die. Nobody wants it. It's a fail. Disney is dead. As we've had just one comment post up here, Disney is dead. But here's something you gotta think about. Think about this for a minute. If Disney dies, okay, it's probably going to be bought up by another studio company. Amazon's got money. Apple's got money. The parks would probably be broken up. The cruise line would be broken up. So all these entities would be sold off to other companies. So other companies, are they going to want to keep those things going? Are they going to want to reimagine them as their own properties? What would the economic hit to the areas that Disney are in, what would that be for some of these places? So we're here in Orlando. If Walt Disney World, let's just say, hypothetically speaking, Walt Disney World were to be sold off to somebody else, we'll just say Six Flags for now, and Six Flags says, hey, we're going to scale it down. We can't run that big of a park, so we'll just close some of the stuff and don't worry about it. What happens to all the people that work there? What happens to all the maintenance? What happens to all the transportation people? What happens to all the people that are influenced by that? That's something to think about. Like, take a minute. But think about that. Like, how much influence does this company have right now that if they were, which I don't think they'll completely go bankrupt or defunct, I think they'll find ways to manage through. It won't be great. They won't be relevant, but they'll manage through it. So, but what happens to like all the people that are influenced by it?
I don't know. I mean, we don't really have control over that. If Disney doesn't give us something that we want to see or do, that's just the way the market goes. You have to provide for your customers and give them what they're looking for. And if they don't, it's not going to be our fault if people are out of work. It's going to be Disney's fault.
Right, but can you fathom the amount of, say, just people unemployed? I mean, I don't think it's something to root for. I certainly don't think
No,
there's,
I don't think so
stuff,
either.
but yes, not paying money into the parks does kind of affect it. But at the same time, for it to swing all the way, which I don't think it will, but if you'd really think about it, it's like that's that's crazy the amount of people that could be saddled with this. That it's not just, well, Iger will be out of the job, so that's cool. Any thoughts on
Well,
that?
again, I don't feel like it's we're the ones that would be to blame for that.
Well,
Again,
I'm not.
it's an entertainment company, and if they're not entertaining you anymore, you go elsewhere. You don't think about the people that are going to lose their jobs.
Right, and that's the thing, though. People are not thinking about that. And I understand. Go
But we can't do
elsewhere.
anything about that.
Well, we certainly can. We put our voices out there, much like we're doing right now, and at least try to give advice to the people at the top. Maybe they
Yeah, but if
watch, maybe
they're
they
not
don't
willing
watch,
to take
but
it, there's only so much you can do. They're
well,
not willing to listen to your advice and fix things, fix the product they're giving us, then, what are you going to do?
well, then I think we have an easier fight to get in next year. Which Peltz did say, if things are not turning around, he will be back next year,
Well, that's
and
good.
I think he'll be bringing someone with a bit more firepower with him.
Well, that would be good.
And so, could we see Elon Musk possibly jumping into this proxy fight next year? That would be very interesting to see. We've already seen what he's done with Twitter. If he were to do something like that at Disney, I think it could absolutely 100% change the company and bring it back to profitability and bring it to a place that maybe is even going to be greater than the 90s version of what Disney is right now.
Well, exactly. If someone is willing to listen to their consumers and listen to what they would like to see and do with the, in their products, their packs, their movies, then they might have a chance. But if they refuse to listen and just want to push their own agenda, I don't think it's going to last.
Right. Well, we certainly don't want to see people lose jobs, but we are seeing it more and more. And something I want to bring up is an article that came up today on CNBC. So let me just do that share real quick. And the article states data from business intelligence firm CreditSafe shows Peloton, Saks, Express, and Bath and Body Works have routinely failed to pay their vendors on time. If relationships with vendors sour, it can in some cases be an early sign a company is in financial distress. So you've got those big names, Peloton, Saks Fifth Avenue, Saks discount stores and everything, Express for Men. You've got, what's the other one? Bath and Body Works. Huge companies are now starting to not be able to pay their vendors. Is this a sign that the recession is here, or are we still riding high on the hog?
No, definitely the recession is here. And yeah, I do believe that would be the first sign that they may be going out of business shortly when they can't pay their vendors.
Right, right, and these are the bigger high end names, and I was really curious to actually start digging in to see if this kind of stuff was happening, because you notice that houses, sales are declining on houses, automobiles sales are declining, and I thought to myself, well, what about high end stuff? And Saks is certainly high end. Peloton is definitely expensive, weight machinery, weight losing machinery. And so you have these high end brand names now not being able to keep supplies coming in and not paying vendors on time. So sales must be down with them for them not to have the money.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
because even if people can afford these high end things, sometimes they just won't buy them if they don't like the way the store's presenting things to them.
Right. You got to see value in stuff. Like if you've paid $600 for a Peloton machine before and now the price is 800, but it's the same exact machine, I think a lot of people who look for that kind of value are not seeing it, and it leads to kind of shrinkflation and price increases and everything, where you have the same product and it's either not gotten better or actually dropped a little in value, but it's the same price it's always been, or even went up in cases. So I think people are kind of getting to the point where they're not going to want to shell out for a vacation. They're not going to want to shell out for a new car. They're not going to want to shell out for a new home. And
Well,
I think
it's not
it's
there. I mean, if you go to the grocery store, things cost more and the packages are smaller, you get less product. So I think it's happening and with necessities, never mind with the extras that people buy.
right. You're actually saving the money from buying that extra bag or extra shirt or extra equipment, and you're saving it more for your gas, for your food, for insurance, for
Yeah,
taxes that are going up.
that's what a
So
recession is. You have to put off the big things because you need the small things like food and gas and heat.
right, and we're seeing inflation go down a little. Last month it was 2.8% year over year inflation rate. So you are seeing it start to shrink down. So the purchasing is not where it was, say, Christmas time or even a year ago. People have pulled back. They're not buying as much. So the supplies are starting to come back. There's a high value of in a high amount of supplies out there. So the prices are starting to drop on some stuff. So I think you'll see inflation go down little by little over the next couple months. Jerome Powell just came out the other day and said we still need to see higher amounts of decreases in the inflation. They're still shooting for their 2% inflation rate, and they don't want to put out a interest rate decrease if they're not ready for it. And I know it was kind of stunning to a couple of the people who were talking about it and wrote nice little reports on it. But it wasn't stunning to me, because if you've been watching the channel over the last year, you'll know that I came out early this year and stated that I didn't think there was going to be an interest rate decrease till probably the earliest of September. I'm still going to stick with that for right now. We'll see at the next Fed meeting if anything changes with them. But I think September, you'll probably be in like 2.2% inflation. And I think you could actually hear them start to say, yeah, we're looking at a decrease, which would help out, I think, with credit cards, auto loans. I don't know about the mortgage rate. The mortgage rate is still kind of stubbornly high, above 7% right now. So it may take a little longer for it to affect the mortgage rate. But I think we're getting there. It's going to be painful, but we're moving. We're not just stagnation. We're starting to kind of deflate a little. It's starting to get a little better for everybody. How do you see the world, Mayor Jade?
How do I see the world? Like
Yeah.
going to
Like
hell in a handbasket is how I see it.
So total doom and
Yeah,
gloom on your side.
doom and gloom. Yep.
Doom and gloom. Okay, all right. Well, we might have somebody who could save that doom and gloom, and that's Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He's going to be running as an independent for president of the United States of America, and he
Yeah,
just
well,
recently
independent, but look at his running mate.
Well, he just recently released his running mate, and I'll share that with the fine folks right now. Let me just see here if I can pull that up. Okay. Do we have it? Yes, we have it. Okay. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. picks Nicole Shanahan as his running mate for his independent White House bid. That's a picture of her right there. If we go down a little, chose Nicole Shanahan to be his vice presidential pick, adding a wealthy but nationally unknown figure to his independent White House bid. It's trying to appeal to voters disaffected by the rematch of 2020 election. If you're in another country watching this, we do have so far in this 2024 election coming up, Joe Biden versus Donald Trump versus Robert F. Kennedy Jr. So Shanahan is his vice presidential running mate. She's 38 years old. She's a California lawyer and philanthropist who's never actually held an elected office. She leads Baya Echo Foundation, an organization she found to direct money toward issues including women's reproductive science, criminal justice reform, and environmental causes. Stop me if you've heard this before. Stop me if you've heard this before. Kennedy, also a former Democrat, made the announcement in Oakland, California, where Shanahan was raised in an impoverished family. Let me just scan this a little more if there's anything else actually about her.
Now, has she actually left the Democratic Party like Bobby says he has?
Well, I know she was still in it as far as 2020. I had read that she had actually donated money to the Biden campaign in 2020, but I had not heard anything recently that she was active with anybody on the Democratic side. She was formerly married to Google co founder Sergey Brin. Shanahan is deeply enmeshed in the Silicon Valley technology culture that Kennedy frequently critiques. Now, that'll be interesting to see what,
Yeah, I mean,
what
why do
goes
you
on
suppose
behind the
he chose
curtains.
her?
What's that?
Why do you suppose he chose her?
It's an interesting pick, but it goes more towards the left leaning side, where a lot of people I think were thinking he was leaning right. So maybe he's trying to balance his ticket where he thinks he's going right, central right, and he thinks she's going left, central left. So he's trying to get that mix of a little bit of left, a little bit of right. And so I think he chose her for that reason, because there's no other real like qualifications other than she donated a bit of money to Democrats in the past, but not anything that actually states she's run for any office or tried to run for an office or anything, or held any positions. Um, so nothing political wise, more philanthropy. Runs a business now. Was married to somebody with a lot of money and influence in the tech industry. So there's also a possibility he could be trying to court those tech people and be able to shore up finances for the election run. Like, it's going to get down and dirty over the next couple months. There's going to be a lot of stuff being thrown out there, and you're going to need a lot of money to counter the advertisements against you, the super
Yeah, but
PACs that are putting
I
stuff
don't
out
think
against you.
money was his problem.
Well, it would get his name out more if he's able to do some national television shows, be able to get
Which
some
he couldn't
national
do
advertising.
without her help, I'm sure.
How so?
Well, because he's a Kennedy. They're not exactly poverty stricken.
Right, but
You know,
when you're running in an election, a lot of times you're not using your own money unless you're
well, that's
super,
true.
super wealthy. A lot of times you're courting with super PACs, you're courting with donors, you're getting people to try to donate as much as possible, and you're using that money to fund all the little stuff, gatherings, events, rallies, even being able to get your name on ballots in states. You have to be able to have people and pay these people to go out, get signatures. And then when you go to the state and the state says, hey, we need to validate all these signatures, you then have to have those people be able to validate and go through each one and say, this is where I got this person. All that is take time, and that time has to be paid for. Like, you can't have 5,000 volunteers and not pay them. Like, it just doesn't work like that. So you need as much money coming in as you possibly can. And if you can hit big donors like the tech world, it's going to really help your election make it all the way through. And
But what do you think?
right now, leading in financials is Biden. Biden is bringing in a lot of money right now, and they're going to use it to attack any and everyone out there who isn't for Biden, even in the Democratic Party. They're going to go after their own people. It's going to get ugly. Go ahead.
But what do you think Bobby's chances are, considering how third party candidates don't usually fare too well in elections?
Well, I think his name does hold a lot of cachet. You hear Kennedy and you think of Camelot, you think of the old times, and you think of president with John Kennedy being a president. But I think when people
Unless
start,
you
and
think
I
of
know
the
this is
chap
bad,
on Twitter,
uh, you can think of that too. But I think when
the
people
blonde in
hear
the
him
farm.
and wonder about his voice, which he hasn't explained publicly, he's kind of explained it, in his own kind of podcasts and stuff. But and then people see, like, I think he's what, 60 or 65. He's in his 60s, I believe. And the man is built. So it's definitely not someone you see like just in a suit all day. He's very much just in casual clothing, or the video where he's outside working out with no shirt on. So you don't think of presidential status when you see images like that. So I think
Well,
he's got to work harder on stuff like that. He needs to kind of polish himself up a little and then come out and say, this is what I want to do.
I think he's aiming for the way of his uncle, and mainly his uncle. When he ran for president, you saw him at the beach, you saw him on the boat, you saw him with all the children. And for my own thinking, I think I first supported him because of the nostalgia factor. You wanted to see
Mhm.
another Kennedy in the White House. So I'm originally from Massachusetts, living very close to Kennedy country. And that was exciting when we had a native son as a president. and a lot of it was nostalgia. But as I'm coming to see more of the stuff he's saying and doing, I'm not so sure my support for him anymore.
Right. Interesting. Interesting. I think he's actually shooting for the younger crowd. He's certainly doing a lot more on Twitter, doing a lot more of podcasts and stuff like that. He's spoken that it is hard to get on mainstream media. I've only seen him once on CNN. I haven't seen him on any of the network news shows or anything like that. So he's not popular with the mainstream media, so it doesn't
See,
help
that's
him.
a
But
whole
if
nother thing that's
right,
annoying. The news used to report. They didn't tell you who was popular and who wasn't. They reported for everyone. And it's a sad
indeed,
thing to
yeah,
see that they're trying to keep out people they don't like.
and we've seen that in reports from investigations that media has been shut down in a sense from FBI, the CIA, the White House. Like we've seen postings and notes delivered that said, shut stories down and uh, keep this out of the news and stuff like that. So you really have to kind of go outside of the mainstream media, the MSM, and find news in different ways. A
Yeah.
lot of people are checking X, which was Twitter. They're checking Facebook, Instagram. They're checking even TikTok, which I don't know how much news you're getting off of TikTok, but
No.
they're checking those outside sites. So I think whoever is promoting on there is probably going to get a good chunk of the younger vote. The older vote do tend to stay on the MSN sites and kind of get their news from there. Right now, though, I think with the full on investigations and trials of Donald J. Trump, I think he gets into the news more and more and more each news cycle.
Yeah, don't
Uh,
they say there's no such thing as bad publicity?
I mean, every day I seem to getting some type of beep about something on this case or that case or something's going down with that, and so you're not seeing as much as Biden, which is, I guess, a good thing. That's how he won 2020, basically. And the only thing that came out was something this Sunday, which was Easter Sunday, that was called the Transgender Day of Diversity. Um, didn't
Well,
actually turn out to be good news for Biden because everyone
people,
sort of. Go ahead.
people were saying that he deliberately did this on Easter, but I discovered that it's actually been the same date every year, and it just happened to fall on Easter this year.
Right.
So
It
I
was
don't
actually
think
created in 2009 by a Michigan person. They're transgender, so not really sure who they are now. But they started it in 2009. It kind of got a little bit of push when the Obama administration was around. And then in 2021, uh, Joe Biden actually officially made it a day and has been celebrating it since. Now, when asked the next day by a media spokesperson asking a question of, did you hear the backlash on it? He basically said, well, that wasn't me that put it up there.
Yeah, well, we know a
So,
lot of stuff he says is not him saying.
right. So we've heard before saying it wasn't me, it was them. So kind of curious to see who they or them is. But
Well, we have some suspicions the former president is involved in being one of those they.
right. But I want to take a weird twist for a minute. And I want to get you thinking on something else here tonight, folks. Are they using this as a prop to keep everyone arguing? If you look back 4 years ago, they were using Black Lives Matter and the African American people of America to basically keep everyone arguing with each other and not really noticing stuff and not really seeing stuff. And that's how you had articles not get reported on and things missing in news, and people were too busy arguing with each other. And now that that
Yeah,
kind of fizzled
the
out, go ahead.
wag dog thing, from
Right,
Clinton days when they'd make a distraction, keep people distracted from what's actually happening. And in this case, they also use the division, dividing everyone up.
right. And it kind of fizzled out with Black Lives Matter when it was found out they were using the money to buy mansions. And so I think now they've kind of moved over to the LGBTQ community, and they're now using them. So it's kind of weird. It's a little strange that everyone's arguing about this rather not looking at it as, hey, why are you trying to separate us? And I think for anyone who is transgendered or LGB, I would take a look at it and say, hey, wait a minute, I'm kind of angry that you're using a day that I was going to celebrate and you're throwing it out there. So now everyone's angry at me when it was supposed to be just a day for us to talk about stuff.
Yeah.
And you may actually want to take a second thought if you're thinking about voting for Joe Biden, because he basically threw you under the bus for Easter, and could have easily walked it back and said, listen, we understand that we made a mistake with putting Twitter posts out. We certainly encourage Christians to celebrate Easter. We also encourage people to take a look at transgenderism and people who are transgendered, and it's a day to see who they are, see their stories, find out who they are. And it just so happened that the 2 days happen to fall on the same day. We are, sorry for putting the posts out at the same time. And we will look into this in future instances on how to properly communicate our message to the people. And that's all you really have to say. It's like basically that easy to kind of just walk everything back a little. Hey, we just put both stuff out. We were a little not the greatest way to do it, but we'll find a new way to do it and we go from there. So certainly they don't know how to do anything with this administration, whoever is doing it. And I think people on the LGBTQ side should see that as this is not an administration that is supporting you. They're using you. And you should be as angry as people are about not having Easter celebrated as the biggest event of that day also. So what are your thoughts on that? Is it something weird or am I on to something here?
Well, I think they definitely try to use distractions to get your mind off Hunter's laptop or whatever the story is. They definitely want to distract us from that. And yeah, I think people will feel like they've been used when they're putting them out there as something to discuss and argue about rather than what we should be mad at.
Right. So if you happen to start thinking about maybe who you want to vote, I would certainly say check out all the options. Check out Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Check out Donald J. Trump. Check out Joe Biden, because maybe you'll see something you don't like. And you can choose to vote. Think about who you're voting for. And that's the main topic. Think about stuff. Pay attention to what's going on. We've got till November. There's going to be a lot of crazy stuff coming out. There's going to be a lot of things getting thrown up. I put out a post on my Facebook a while ago, and basically it sums it up. And don't stare at the smoke, look past the smoke. Look past whatever they're throwing up in front of you, because there's a reason behind what's going on. If you
Yeah.
find out what that reason is, you'll find out what they're really trying to do. So, any last topics you might want to talk about, Mary Jade? Anything else you want to bring up?
I don't know. I mean, other than being angry at Disney for all the crazy stunts they pull, I guess, that's it. I mean, I hate to bring up the sequels, but a lot of people agree with me. They don't like them. And why on earth they didn't just follow the books when they brought it, when they said they were going to make sequels. There was a lot of material, particularly Timothy Zahn and his books. It would have been excellent movies. So I guess I'm just annoyed at Disney all around.
That welcomes us into our Star Wars segment. Thank you for joining us from a galaxy far, far away. In the epic story, it's basically going nowhere. The Acolyte is out, or going to be coming out. Bad Batch is out. Have you watched either of those shows?
I have watched The Bad Batch, and
Okay.
unfortunately, it was good. It is good, but it seems to be pointing to the sequels as well. And
Okay.
I was watching the last episode the other day, and it just occurred to me that there's not going to be a happy ending here for any of the characters. That's kind of sad, I think.
So, do you think that they could reboot it, the whole franchise?
I think if they went back to the books and did some of that stuff, made those into movies, there was a lot of good material they could have used that wouldn't have. I feel like they made Luke look like a pathetic thing, an old man whose life was a big failure, and I don't think that was right. They could have done the books and showed us the character. Even the idea that Ben was Leia's son. We know that Ben was Luke's son with his wife Mara Jade, and then the Solos had three children: Jason, Jaina, and Anakin. And Jason actually turned to the dark side. He became Darth Caedus. And there could have been there's so many stories there that would have been worth seeing and telling. And I just feel like Disney bought the franchise and then took it off track.
Okay, so if they were to fire Kathleen Kennedy and put you in there, how would you start building this back up?
Well, I would tell them sorry about the sequels. We didn't mean it. And I'd
Okay.
go ahead and tell the other stories. Because I don't think we wanted to see a lot of strange characters coming in that we never saw before. I think we wanted to know what happened to our heroes, Han and Leia and Luke. And I think that's what the story I would tell, not bring some strange character in that may or may not have been Han Solo's daughter, who suddenly was strong in the Force, which he wasn't. So how would she be? Because she wasn't Leia's daughter. She
Right.
was, somebody when Han and Leia were separated, so the child of somebody at that time. And I don't know. And they wanted strong characters, and Mara Jade was a strong character, just like Leia. They didn't sacrifice their femininity to be strong like we see some of the characters now doing. And Yeah, I would tell the story of Luke and his marriage and his child, and the stories that we saw in the book. So that's what I would tell.
Interesting. So the sequels are no longer canon, and we're gonna rebuild from there. So
Right, right.
basically, episode 7, 8, and 9 will be redone, and you're gonna focus on Luke Skywalker and Mara Jade Skywalker.
Them and Han and Leia and their 3 children.
Well, excellent, excellent.
Focus.
That's a good idea. Good idea right there.
But I'll never take Kathleen Kennedy's place. So I can't make coffee.
Okay, okay.
You know,
All right. Well, Disney. I mean, there's your answer if you want one. There's something to try and see if you can get all this stuff back on
but Disney doesn't want
track.
to listen to anybody because many other people have had the same ideas, and no, Disney just wants to do their own thing, push their own agenda, and not listen to ideas of creativity. Do we even have any Imagineers anymore at Disney?
The closest thing you got is Joe Rody doing a master class or 3 master classes because they said he's only going to be there a little bit. So I think that's the closest thing you got right now. But the best thing to do, I think, is just shout stuff out, put it out there, let people know this is your idea. And years later, someone may look at it and be like, "Damn, we should have listened to that one." But there's other people out there that are shouting, and if you join the voice gets louder, and eventually it gets loud enough that they have to listen to it. They just can't block it out anymore. So I want to thank you for coming on the show. We're going to start wrapping up right now. Mary Jade, it's been a great time. Vernell would usually give a quote of the night. So here's my quote. Just pay attention, people. Pay attention in everything that you're doing because you might miss a great opportunity that jumps up in your lap. So, with that advice, I want to thank everyone for tuning in tonight. We've got quite a few viewers on Rumble. Thank you for joining us on Rumble. Thank you for joining us on YouTube. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, follow, and just join us next Thursday where we'll have another exciting few topics to talk about. Well, we'll see how Vernell does. But yeah, he's on a flight right now. He should be coming in pretty soon, but he'll have to miss this show, and we'll get him back next Thursday. 2 Men in a Room, 8 o'clock ish every Thursday. All right. Would you like to take us out, Mara Jade?
Okay. I want to thank all the audience for being with us, and see you next Thursday.
All right. See you next Thursday. Good night, everybody. Have a wonderful night.
Good night.